after that bullet, what do you remember?
Everything.
You remember? So you were totally lucid and conscious the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know I was shot until they got me to the hospital.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
It's a special type of person that runs towards the danger, putting your life on the line without any thought of the consequences to yourself, putting the needs of the many before the needs of your own. Knock on the devil's door often and somebody's going to answer. When the devil answers, the nightmare begins, and he hopes that you'll be easy prey and give up quickly. The choice to live or die is not so easy. Dying turns the pain off, while living turns the pain up. Carrying the burden of survival is a never-ending battle that lasts forever. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome a very special guest, and that's Josh Vadell, to discuss the suffering of the wounded. Josh has survived, I think you'll agree with me, every police officer's worst nightmare.
Worst nightmare. Every police officer and their family's worst nightmare.
Josh, thanks so much for traveling all this way.
Thanks for having me.
You had a bailout from your partner. Yeah. Wait till I give him some crap for bailing out on you.
It's all good.
Yeah, listen, Bill.
Family's more important.
But you're his family.
Yeah, but he had it. I give him the pass for what he had to deal with.
Just give him some crap on the back end. That's
I
right.
will. Yeah.
Before we go any further, though, I want to give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to them. Go to toyotaofhackensack.com. Let them find you a car. Josh, it's nice to have some South Jersey blood in here, man.
I know it's weird being up here.
I'm used to it now.
Right.
When I go down there, it's like a different world to me anymore. Although it's built up the same way.
Are both of you over the Eagles' loss yet, or is it still sinking in?
No, I'm not over it yet.
I'm a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You know, the funny thing is up here, you never see anybody wearing Eagles stuff. The day before, the week before the Super Bowl, I saw green jackets everywhere. And the other day in the gym, I saw a Chiefs jacket. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
No.
God, you break.
Traitor.
It's enemy territory, man. You don't wear anything down in Philly or South.
No. And my son, I teach my son the same way. I said, you rub that shit right in.
Absolutely.
Try walking down a Wildwood boardwalk with a Chiefs jacket on now.
No, you'll be tarred and feathered.
Yeah.
Josh, every week we take a question from one of our audience members. This week's question comes from M_X, and it says, what do you consider to be success? I think what they're asking is how do you define success? And I thought this one was good for you because I imagine in the past couple years going through what you've gone through, your definition of success has probably changed.
Definitely.
So what do you think?
For me personally, I would say just not giving up and having happiness and health.
That's a pretty basic goal for success.
Yeah.
You know, happiness and health, because without that, you got nothing.
Right.
Mike, what do you think?
You know, I mean, to me, success is waking up every morning. You know, the things we've been through and some of the things we've seen. And
depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
waking up in the morning might be failure to somebody else.
You got that right. And I think the most important thing is happiness. You know, everybody said, you know, you see all the successful businessmen, you know, they get a lot of money. Does that really bring you happiness? I mean, I'd love to be rich and pissed off at everybody.
But I've seen just as many miserable
I'd
people.
rather be poor and happy.
I've seen just as many wealthy people. They're just absolutely miserable human beings.
Absolutely.
So I don't think money is a metric for success.
Definitely not.
You know, years ago I read this book called The Millionaire Next Door, and in this book, it basically went through like the average millionaire, what they wear, like a $300 to $500 suit. It's very humble, like the average millionaire. They live in a $500,000 house or a $300,000 house. But one of the things in this book it did is it really defined success and failure. Because everybody knows the word success, everybody knows the word failure, but if you ask somebody to define it, it's a very daunting task. And what they said was the definition of success is exceeding expectations. The definition of failure is falling below expectations. In the dating world, men set themselves up for failure all the time. Your first anniversary, you give your wife 3 dozen roses, right?
Yeah.
All right. Next year, maybe it's 2 dozen roses. You still gave her 2 dozen roses. All right?
Right.
But you failed. You failed. I used to say this with the police world. I used to know guys that never took a sick day, like you, never took a sick day. And I would take a sick day when I was sick. I wasn't abusing the system, but maybe I'd take, 5 this year and 3 the following year. Well, if you look at the metrics of it, I succeeded because they're expecting me to take 5. If you took 2, which is still less than the 3, you failed from coming from a 0 year. So again, it's setting yourself up for success by having reasonable expectations. That's the bottom line to this. M_X, thank you so much for sending that in. Keep sending in your questions, and we'll try to get them on the air. So Josh Vadell, and we've been talking about you. We've been wanting you in here ever since we met you. Like I followed you, and the reason I followed you is I'm a South Jersey kid. I have a lot of friends on the Atlantic City Police Department that I grew up with, that I went to school with, including your partner.
Yeah.
And so when your incident happened in 2016, I watched everything. And, of course, like every other police officer, I prayed tooth and nail for you to get through this.
Thanks, man.
So I know a little bit more about you. And when I saw you at that event, I recognized you immediately. I'm like, yep, that's him.
Yeah.
And then Bill and I got off talking about Holy Spirit High School.
Yeah, it's funny. Of course, you guys knew each other. The one person. But Billy knows everybody everywhere.
Well, Billy knew my brother because my brother's an officer in South Jersey. I never knew Billy.
Oh,
Bill Mazer, who we're talking about. I never knew Billy. Billy was a little bit older than me. I'll remind him of that every time I see him now. But him and I,
pretty though.
Yeah, he's a good looking man.
He is.
If I was going that way,
Right.
We got a couple of people he can set him up with.
Is that what you South Jersey guys talk about? Good looking guys.
I've never been one, so I wouldn't know. But Billy and
The
I
biggest
have
compliment you can get is getting hit on by another dude.
What Kevin did.
Yeah. See? You see? Thanks, Nick and Mark. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's a different world up here in North Jersey. Listen, I've lived up in North Jersey now more than I've lived in South Jersey.
Wow.
And but the one thing that binds us together, especially in New Jersey, when an officer goes through a critical incident, we do rally around our own.
Absolutely.
Without doubt.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Josh, like I said, I know enough about you. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Do it. I just look at
Yeah,
you.
you just look wherever you want to look.
Okay. So
If you want to look in the camera and look pretty, go ahead. Go do your thing, man.
I don't want to break his camera. I can't afford to replace it.
By the way, what you're going to find out in this episode is Josh has one of the most messed up senses of humor
That's why he
I've
fits
ever
right in here.
heard in my life. Just a quick story before you tell our audience who you are.
Okay.
Josh was in a shooting incident in 2016. So when I'm speaking to him last night, he says, well, my ride canceled out. I'm looking for another ride. I guess I'll just bite the bullet and drive up here myself. I'm pretty good at biting bullets. I'm like, Jesus.
I think I said eating bullets is my superpower.
That's it. That's exactly what you said. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Okay, so I'm a retired police officer. I was on 10 years, and I got into shooting on duty, interrupting an armed robbery.
At Caesars, correct?
Yeah, right outside the Caesars parking garage. Yeah. And we weren't responding to a call. We were just driving around looking for somebody, and we just happened to roll up in the middle of an armed robbery.
Oh, you weren't responding anywhere?
No, we weren't prepared at all.
Oh, wow.
We rolled up right in the middle of it. And then when I got out of the car to engage the gunman, when I saw the gun, I went right into action. I got out of the car to engage him. And I had tunnel vision. I was focused on where he was going to be when I got out of the car. And I didn't realize he started running past me. And as he's running past me, he just picked up the gun and started firing. And the first round caught me in the head.
Now, did you see? Was it a handgun? Was it?
Yeah.
It was a handgun.
Yeah, it was a revolver, yeah.
It was a revolver.
Mm-hmm.
So he got a lucky shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but unfortunately, lucky for him is very unlucky for you. After that bullet, what do you remember?
Everything.
You remember? So you were totally lucid and conscious the whole time.
Yeah, I didn't know I was shot until they got me to the hospital.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. The blood didn't give it away?
Well, I fell backwards on my back. Yeah, I heard the first gunshot. I fell backwards on my back. I still had my gun in my hand, but everything shut off. Like my body just went numb. And I was trying to get back. I was trying to sit up to get back into the gunfight, and just nothing would work. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, what the F's going on? Like, why can't I move? And then I heard more successive gunfire, and I didn't know where that gunfire was coming from. It was coming out so fast. It sounded like an automatic weapon. And I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, we're outgunned here. I thought maybe the other two suspects had like an automatic weapon. I'm like, we're outgunned here. Like, I need to get back into this fight, and nothing was working. So I'm like, why can't I get up? And then gunfire stops, and I hear my partner on the radio yelling, shots fired, officer down, my partner's hit. And I'm laying there, I'm looking up, I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm hit. Like, I felt no pain whatsoever. And then he comes running over to me, and he's shaking me. He's like, Josh, you all right? And I could see his face was as white as, the walls in here. And he's terrified. I'm like, I'm trying to say, what's going on? Like, help me up. And nothing would come out. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I was like stuck in my body.
You're like that Metallica song, One.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I could
The video
picture.
from One.
Yeah, where you're just locked inside your own body.
Yeah, and I've always loved that song. I never saw the video, but I've heard it after the shooting, and every time I hear it, like, it gives me the chills thinking about like that song.
Yeah, it's obviously about somebody who goes down during a critical incident. They're conscious, but everybody around them doesn't know that they're conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your partner, I'm assuming you've spoken to your partner that night since the shooting.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So who do you think was more scared, you or him?
Probably him.
Yeah,
Because
And
Josh didn't know what was going on. Your partner was seeing this thing.
Yeah, and everyone else
firsthand.
that showed up right after. So as soon as you want me to continue?
absolutely.
Right ahead.
Okay. So he's yelling on the radio for backup. More guys start showing up, and Tommy's yelling on the radio, where's the ambulance? And the ambulance was staging because there was an active gun battle going on.
Do you want to give your partner's name?
Oh, yeah, Tom McCabe.
Tom McCabe. Okay.
Yeah. And,
I thought you were going to say Tom Holton.
oh, no.
Yeah, I know Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So I actually chose Tommy as a partner
Yeah.
because we had a connection on one call one time, and like I just knew his background in military. He was a go-getter like me. He wasn't afraid to go hands-on. So I'm like, this guy, compared to other people that I worked with, there was the older guys that didn't want to do shit,
Oh, believe me, we know.
and then there was the young go-getters, and I just connected with him on one call one time. I'm like, I want this guy to be my partner. And my wife gave me shit about it because back then we had to have the same days off as our partners. And at that time, I think I might have had like 9 years on, and Tommy had just gotten on. And he had, shitty middle of the week days. I could have had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. And I picked his days off. My wife gave me shit. Why did you pick those days off? Why didn't you could have the weekends off with me and the girls? I'm like, well, listen, I put it to her like this. I could have shitty days off and come home in one piece, or I could have good days off and end up dying at work because I get stuck working with the Slugs. And she's like, all right, fair enough. And that's one of the best decisions I ever made on the job was having Tom as my partner.
One of the things that people don't realize is you have a city cop. We're suburban cops. You have a city cop, and every suburban cop thinks, wow, they must be these go-getters, they're always busy type of guys. But what I found out is there's just as many slugs in the inner cities as there are in the suburbs. It's a level playing field across the board.
Yeah.
When I first transferred to my department, they used to switch it with people all the time. You get hooked up with a go-getter on midnight. Midnight flies by.
Oh yeah.
You get hooked up with one of these slugs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We had guys who used to just pull behind headquarters and go to sleep all night.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go in by the desk and I'd take the rest of the night off. I'd tell the lieutenant, listen, if I'm going to sleep, I'm going home to sleep.
There was guys who used to bring pillows. I know these guys used to bring pillows.
Those neck rolls that they get on the airplanes and all that.
But I was very fortunate very early on in my career to work with a sergeant who had 20 plus years on, and he was just one of these old time sergeants. But whenever he worked midnights with me, he would ask me this question: "Hey kid, you get some sleep today?" "Yeah, I got some sleep. You want to do something or you want to relax? It's your choice." Because he knew that I was a young officer and I wanted to work. Like
Right.
that takes maturity, that takes experience, and that takes a special type of leader. And most of the time, I'd say 99% of the time, yeah, I want to work because there's nothing worse to me than doing nothing.
There are some nights where you're just not feeling it.
Yeah,
You know,
When
and
you're
you don't, you don't want to do something. You know, maybe you're tired, maybe you're not feeling good, maybe you had a rough day at home with the kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And a good supervisor will take care of you at that point.
Now,
all you have to do is say, I'm not really feeling it tonight.
that's a good supervisor. A good supervisor will check with you because you're only as good as your partner.
Absolutely.
Obviously. At what point during this whole ordeal did you finally come to terms with, hey, I'm shot?
So when they found out the ambulance was staging, they weren't coming to get me. Whoever was there, I'm not sure if it was Tommy or one of the other guys, said, they're fucking taking too long. We got to take them ourselves. And then they picked me up, and they're trying to get me in the backseat of the patrol car. And as you know, the patrol car door is only open so far. So you got these two big dudes holding dead weight. I was 185 at the time, so dead weight, they're struggling to get me in the back seat. And as they're doing that, I could see the blood just pouring out of my head. But I didn't know it was my blood. I didn't know where the fuck the blood was coming from. And they're like, shit. Like, they're cursing. We had to get him in his car. And Tommy runs around the other side.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He jumps
Pull him in.
Yeah, he grabs me and pulls me in the car. And he's holding my head in his lap. And then the car starts moving. So I'm looking at him. I'm like, he was driving. At that moment, he was driving. I always drove. I'll get back to that in a little bit. So I'm looking at him. The car's moving. I'm like, all right, wait. He's here. I'm here. Like, who the fuck's driving the car? Like, I'm thinking, like, I'm trying to process, like, if he's here, who's driving the car? And he's putting pressure on the wound, and I didn't feel any, like, pain in the bullet wound. Like, I guess my head must have slipped, or he was pushing so hard here, the left side of my head started hurting from the plastic. The patrol seat, the back seats are plastic. So he was pushing so hard, pressure here, it was hurting over here. So I'm trying to fight him off, but I couldn't move. And in the car, we get to the hospital, and the guy driving was coming in. I remember specifically, he was coming in so hot, he almost couldn't stop, and he almost drove into the trauma bay of the hospital.
The brakes. You ever get that on chases? Your brakes go out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your brakes heat up and they no longer
The
work.
smell of burning brake pads.
Oh, yeah, that's awful stuff.
So we get there, they pull me out of the car, and now by this time I'm able to move and talk. I'm only able to move my right arm, so I'm holding on. Tommy was on my right, so I'm holding on to Tommy like this. My head's hanging, the blood just pouring out of my head.
Imagine the people seeing you come in. You're coming in with your arm around somebody, blood pouring out of your head in uniform. Those trauma people in that hospital, holy cow.
I'm sure there was a trauma team waiting for you. They probably gave the hospital a heads up and said, we got an officer coming in.
They were the best of the best.
Where'd you go, Atlantic City Medical?
Yeah. Fortunate for me, I was only a block away when the shooting happened. So they just had to go right around the corner. And as I'm holding on to Tommy, the blood's pouring out, and I'll never forget the sound. It was like if you took this water bottle and just dumped it out, that's what it sounded like, except it was like thick arterial blood. So it was like slopping. It was like slopping on the pavement.
Coagulated.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him because I thought it was Tommy's blood. I didn't know it was my blood. So then the team comes running out. They got the stretcher. They're starting to rip my uniform open, and I became combative. I'm smacking their hands away, and I'm pushing them off of me because I'm thinking, like, these uniforms are expensive. Like, who the fuck's gonna pay for this? Like, I can't afford it.
I did. I tore my shoulder out one time. They took me to the hospital. I couldn't move my arm. They were gonna cut my uniform up. I go, no, hang on. I can do this with one hand, and I get it off one hand.
Because my wife was 9 months pregnant at the time too, so I'm thinking I can't afford a new uniform. I got to pay for a baby, and who knows how long. And then they say, "Sir, please cooperate. You've been shot." And I'm like, "Where am I shot?" I asked them, and when they said you were shot in the head, when they told me that, I'm like, "Oh God, I'm gonna fucking die," because in my mind I was thinking nobody lives after getting shot in the head. especially, you know, us as cops.
Yeah, exactly.
We're unfortunate. You take a round in a leg or something, it ricochets, it hits an artery or
Yeah.
And you
yeah,
bleed out.
yeah. So I'm like, I got two things against me. One, nobody lives after getting shot in the head. Two, I'm a cop. Like I'm dead. So I start pleading with them. Please don't let me die. Please don't let me die. I got a baby on the way. And they're like, we're not going to let you die. You just got to cooperate with us. I said, okay. And then they throw me on the stretcher. And I started getting sleepy. And I knew what was happening. I'm bleeding out. I'm about to die. And I wanted to go to sleep. And that's all it was. Like, I was terrified because I'm shot. But I was also, it was kind of like dying was easy. Like, I could have just closed my eyes and went to sleep. And that was it. And as I was closing my eyes, Tommy starts yelling at me, Josh, stay awake, stay with us. So I'm staying awake. Now I'm thinking about my wife, my two daughters, my pregnant wife, my two daughters at home.
Were you calm at this point?
Yeah, I was calm, but when I started thinking about my wife and my two kids, I got pissed off.
Calm, but shitting yourself on the inside.
Yeah, like I was fucking angry because I'm thinking I had this guy dead to rights, but he got me first. So now I'm angry. He got me first. I'm not going to see my wife and kids because I'm about to die. So that anger, where my entire life where anger has been a detractor, it's hurt me. That night, it saved my life because that anger motivated me and gave me the adrenaline rush to stay awake, to keep fighting. And they get me into the trauma bay, and they're doing the assessment on me. They're asking me questions, my name. They're checking my eyes, and I could hear everyone. The nurses and doctors, they're running around. It was like controlled chaos. They're yelling at each other, do this, do that, grab this, we need this to prep him for the OR. And so then they start cutting my pants off. And I didn't say this one part, but I'll get back to that later. But anyway, so before I left to work, I'm going to preface this. Before I went to work, we're creatures of habit. We have, what do they call it?
Tuesday pants and Wednesday pants?
No. We're like, as humans, we're creatures of habit. We have certain ways that we do things over and over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And every night I would sleep a little bit before work. I'd wake up, I'd work out, shower, shave, do whatever, and go. This particular night, I started manscaping while my wife was in the bathtub.
Oh, no. Oh,
yeah.
no.
So
I'm going to see your shaved legs and your shaved...
No, something else I think is going to be shaved.
Yeah, exactly. You know exactly.
Yeah,
I was trimming things up.
Trimming hedges.
You were
listen, you got
hacking the jungle.
The shorter the grass, the taller the trees. So.
And the more times you get to play golf.
Right, there you go. And so my wife, she starts giving me shit about it. She's like, who are you doing that for?
Oh, no.
And I'm like, nobody. And famous last words, I'm like, it's in case I get shot. I got to be presentable to the nurses. And sure enough, I went and got shot that night. So as they were cutting my pants off, and because she was giving me so much shit about it, I did a half-ass job. So
you had like a mohawk?
Yeah, one side was done, the other side wasn't. It was like a chia pet. So as they're cutting my pants off, I'm laying there. Here I am dying. I'm laying there thinking, what the fuck's my dick look like right now?
Could you keep my underwear on, please?
Yeah.
I don't know you well enough.
That just goes to show you, like where your mind goes in a traumatic moment, and that goes with every traumatic event. A good friend of mine who went to Afghanistan multiple times, I remember he was telling me a story about a gunfight he was in with the Taliban, and the truck got hit with an RPG, and luckily it missed them. But they used to carry propane tanks on the side of the trucks. And because the RPG hit the truck, it blew up the propane tank, but it didn't explode. It just like pressure release, and it caught fire, and it was bouncing as he's in the middle of this gunfight. It's bouncing in the middle of the gunfight, and he said he remembers looking at the tank bouncing, like, why the hell is there a burning fireball bouncing between us and the Taliban in the middle of a firefight? But he was just like in that traumatic moment, his mind just was in seeing things differently, and I attribute that to any traumatic event.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where my mind was. I'm dying, but I'm thinking about what my dick looks like. And it was cold. It was cold in there too. So.
That's always my excuse whenever that had to happen. Like, it's cold in here.
My partner still breaks my balls about that. He's like, dude, you got a tiny dick. I'm like, bro, I'm bleeding out. The blood's coming out of the wrong head. They're going to the wrong head.
Not only you got shot in the head, but you also got a bad case of smallcocks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're half manscaped.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
that's crazy that you even thought about that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, where exactly on your head did the bullet hit?